right, everybody, Wild-Billiam here with you today, celebrating Stealth Rogue Locksport's 200 subscribers. They're putting on a giveaway. Amazing accomplishment. Congratulations, Stealth Rogue. I will also say that I haven't put a video out in a while, probably since before I went on vacation, as a matter of fact, and been messing around a lot with this Miwa DS. Been on the struggle bus with it here today, playing around with it a little bit before I filmed. But let's see if we can get it open. If not, so be it. I mean, we all win some and lose some, but I do want to celebrate Stealth Rogue, and we'll see if we can get this on film. I'm going to use this bare bones tensioner. I forget what they actually call it. Works great sometimes because it's kind of tapered. The Miwa DS is a up to 10 wafer lock. It's double bitted, meaning that the wafers can go north or south in the keyway, up or down. Of course, it depends on your Miwa DS, but mine, the key is kind of oriented in the traditional north-south orientation versus, dimple locks being more that east-west horizontal position. I do find that these locks do not take a ton of tension. And one of the things the Stealth Rogue wants us to do is to give shout outs to people that have helped us on our journey. I'm a little south of 200 subscribers at this point. Maybe 30 or 40 away, I'm not really sure. Just to start out, just for me knowing about the LPU to begin with is Sandman. His video on the belt system is kind of what got me looking into it more. Got me more on the Reddit side of things. Before that, it had been, the typical lockpicking lawyer videos, which are not as educational. More entertainment, especially for non-lockpickers. But then you've got folks like Lady Locks. Her video on the American 1100 helped me get to Greenbelt. Shout out to Marson as well. He has some great videos on filming for belt videos, which I find incredible. So apologies if my camera setup's not the best. I'm still playing around. I have a webcam that I'm using now that is 4K. I was trying to figure out what the best position to have it in for filming is. What really got me into the DS lately is I started selling locks on the Lock Bazaar from Japan. And one of the things, I got really lucky early on and got a bulk lot of locks that got me some really interesting and unusual, harder to find locks now that aren't made anymore. But this is not one of them, obviously. This one's still pretty plentiful, although it's not being made anymore. But I got quite a few of these that were keyless in that particular lot. And I've been giving them away or selling them relatively inexpensively. You don't necessarily need a key to take these apart once you pick them. Some of them you do, some of them you don't. But Vector Potential decided he wanted to impression some of these locks. So he bought a couple of keyless ones from me. I made sure I got him ones that were bitted differently. And he kind of explained what he discovered, but there aren't necessarily a lot of key cut depths in this lock. Got me thinking, could we 3D print a key? Because earlier on in my 3D printing journey, I had bought some Sargent and Greenleaf safe deposit locks that did not come with the guard key, which is a pretty standard bitting, from my understanding, for most of these locks. So I went into Onshape and drew up a key and some trial and error using a depth and space chart. I created a key that worked. I thought, well, why can't I do that with this lock? The key's not terribly complicated. It kind of has that little hump in the middle, but that wasn't terribly hard with some calipers and a little bit of time and patience. So I came up with a key blank that I marked out all the spacing on it. And using the leashy clippers, I clipped a key. And I thought, well, why don't I try to print one of these keys? So I was lucky enough that, because this lock was actually available, I think, in the banking industry a lot at one point here in the United States, was in use. I found the depth and space charts through HPC for this key, for this lock. There's only 4 cuts available. There's a 0 cut, which is a max lift, which is literally a no cut on the key. There is a number 1, which is a 1 millimeter depth cut. A 2, which is a 1.7 millimeter depth cut, and a 3 that is a 2.5 millimeter depth cut on the key. And again, these cuts can go either up or down on the key on either side, because it is a double bitted key. But there's only 4 cuts. So one of the things I'm offering to do for folks in the community now, I've had more miss than hit on helping others at this point, but is if you have one of these that's keyless and you have a 3D printer, I'll send you the print file. Hit me up on Discord, Reddit. Discord is Wild_Billiam. Reddit is u/Wild-Billiam. And I'll send you the print file for a blank key that's marked. You can use leashy clippers to make yourself a temporary key if you like. You just need to clean it up a little bit, because obviously the plastic doesn't cut as cleanly as the metal. You have to file it a little bit. But if we get some pictures of the core with that key blank in it, we can do a little reading, and I can make you a key. And one of the people that got me really into making the 3D printed keys is another picker, Bagasu. He has a great tool out there in the community. I can't think of the name of it, but I'm sure if you reach out to myself or him, he can point you in the right direction. Obviously doesn't have every key in it, and the DS is a key that's not in there yet. I'm sure he may put it in there eventually. That's up to him. It's his software. But he has put the safe deposit locks in there, and I think there's some other common locks or even unusual locks like the Miwa SR that I picked up in that order. I got a few of those that were keyless and keyed. And then the DOM System D, which is kind of that double, almost like a bi-lock, but it's more of a pin tumbler that's got 2 sides versus sliders. And he also has some follower generator in there now, which is pretty cool. So check him out too if you're into 3D printing. He's done some pretty cool 3D printed stuff. This is just absolutely one of the most encouraging communities on the internet, in my opinion. So shout out to the LPU and to Unlocked and to the Dog Pack, and there's a lot of different Discord servers. The Attic Lounge, the C Stu Do. But my version of, at least my personal one here, is a little different than some of the other DSs that I have sold and taken apart. Don't know if I had any others in that order that were like this. I'm hoping to get more. I think they add a little extra challenge. And I'll explain that when I take the lock apart. You'll actually see it when if I ever get it picked. Shout out the side picks for this kind of raking technique on the pins, or in this case wafers, to look for binders. You know, instead of pressing up on every pin or wafer, you can kind of take your pick and draw through there. And usually, I won't say that's always the case because a pin can be set, but you can fill ones that are already set because of the jiggle test, where a truly set driver pin, you won't have the springiness anymore on the key pin. The key pin is just going to kind of be hanging out there without anything touching it, so it'll kind of jiggle a little more. Not the same here, obviously, but it lets you kind of, if your pick kind of stops on one, which sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, because these max lifts can be a little tough to fill for. And these can actually have serrated wafers. I wish I had an example handy to show you, but I can't think of any of the ones that I currently have that I could pull out of the cabinet and show you. I don't think this one is. It's obvious I'm not going to get this open on camera. And we're already at 15 minutes. So I'm just going to go ahead and take it apart and show you. I'll come back and refilm this at some point. So this guy has a couple of screws on the back. Some of these have C-clips. They can be a little harder to gut because they're tubular in nature, and you may have to pick them open first. In this case, no. So this guy's a little different. You'll see this little 3D printed thing I put on here as a spacer. It had a metal one that broke. So I 3D printed something to put it on there to hold the lock firmly. But you can see this one, you can't just pick it and it comes open. A lot of these, once you get it picked, it just turns freely in the housing here in these slots. This one actually will stop in some of these channels, so you kind of have to pick it 360 or at least 180, which is pretty cool. This lock doesn't need a full gut. It's partial gut. You can see in this case, this lock is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wafers out of 10. No, let's see. 9. So 9 out of 10. So 9 out of 10 here. Because there's some that are in there pretty tight. So I will show you. We'll put this 3D printed blank in here. You can see the ones that there are some that line up perfectly that I would call a true zero cut. But there are others that do not. So the one that sticks up the furthest here on number 1, we'll put the key up here for the actual key for comparison, is a number 3 cut. Because when that blank goes in there, that wafer should sit down in here. We'll see there's no wafer in number 2. If you jump over to number 3, you got another 3 cut. You jump down here to the bottom, and it looks almost like a 3, but it's actually a 2 cut if you look here on the key. And then directly adjacent above these are 2 number 1 cuts. And then adjacent to this underneath here is another number 8 cut, or number 1 cut rather. Actually, that's a number 1. And then we have a 0 cut at the very end here. And then the next to last is also another number 2 cut. So in theory, you could come through here with Lucy cutters and get a pretty accurate key. So I thought that was pretty neat. I think I kept this as a copy of my key to show you what the 3D printed key looks like. This thing doesn't autofocus the best. You can see I kind of put the logo on there and stuff. Okay, this one is pretty close. I don't think it's actually my key. It's another one I've done, but you can still see that it works pretty well, and I would obviously print you more than one. So there you have it. Congrats again, Stealth Rogue. Give me a shout if you need a key. Otherwise, have a fantastic week.